So a lot of pain. However, it took me to a completely different state. I was actually working a lot with yoga, a lot with meditation, a lot with breathing, and actually funneling different energy in order to get through certain pains. I have a bad foot that I actually ran on. For my last 3 weeks of training, I actually had to jog in a pool where I couldn't even put any pressure on my foot prior to my first Ironman. So it's really not the best way to go into something like that, being all jacked up, not being able to run, not being able to swim, and not being able to bike for more than 20 miles. But I guess you set your mind on something, and it's just what I did. I actually, believe it or not, I had just learned to swim about 3 months prior to doing my first Ironman. I grew up in the inner city. I had no idea what a pool was. I could do the side stroke a little bit and doggy paddle. I was really good at doggy paddling. And a friend, I had moved out here, had no idea, talking to a buddy on a Friday afternoon, and he's like, there's a triathlon tomorrow. I'm like, sure, I'll do it. I said, how deep is the water? Oh, not very deep. So I show up, I've got my trunks on, I've got my bike, bling, bling, all stand up and everything. And I hadn't run since high school. And this was when I was 33. And I said, sure, I'll show up. So I show up there, I doggy paddle out there, and I'm like, shit, I'm going to die. Because it's a lot deeper than over my head. So I doggy paddled back in, walked and ran. Walked and side stroked for a half a mile because it was up along the coast. And got on my bike. I was the very last person to come in. Then I went out and I ran in the 6.2 miles, which you had to do in order to finish it. And then the next day I signed up for swimming lessons. And within 3 months, I did my first Ironman. So I really just set my mind to it. It was actually on the premise of, I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen this, in the wide world of sports, there was a guy that had done a couple of Ironmen, and his son had multiple sclerosis. And I'm sitting there watching the wide world of sports, and I see this guy, and he has a boat that he has his son, which is like 25 or 26 at the time, maybe 150 or 160 pounds, and he has a boat, and he puts a harness on, and he swims the 2.5 miles dragging his son. Then he puts him on the front of his bike, and he takes him and pedals the entire 112 miles on it with the son right on his handlebars. And then he has a push car, a lot like a stroller, that he pushed him and did the marathon for the last week. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm just crying, and I'm in awe of the entire thing, that this guy had the mental capacity and the physical commitment in order to finish it. And the reason he did it, strictly, his son loved the breath in his face. He loved the wind in his face. And I said, wow, if this guy can do it and bring his son, there's no reason why I can't do it. And then 3 months later, I finished my first one. But along with that, I think what what we're talking about here and the actual, the opportunity that we have is different philosophies. Not just in religion, but also how you take care of yourself. Eastern philosophy as far as medicine, Western philosophy, whether, I don't take aspirin, I don't do any sort of thing. I really basically just work myself through. If I need to stretch, maybe a little bit of tiger balm here or there if I need to do it. But for the most part, I'm all natural or holistic if I can. I lot of massage therapy. I've had it all over the world. Some you got to be careful of. I can't really say it there. So certain areas, massage therapy is different than others. But for the most part, it was atypical massage therapy. And I was really fortunate. I traveled all over Asia. I've actually been to Japan a couple of times and watched the different philosophies over there. When I was younger, I actually studied different religions, whether it was Judaism, Catholicism. I was actually considered being a priest up until my junior year. Then I got a girlfriend and things kind of changed a little bit. So, but up until that point, I studied a lot of different, Baptists. And I really think a lot of depending on where you travel, it's really religion based. Not to a large, not to the nth degree, but also to some degree, because it's the way that you believe. Out in Asia, when you've got a lot of Buddhists that are out there, they believe in spirituality, holistic training, those sorts of things. The Western philosophy is much different. Stick a needle in you, stick a pill in you, and then hopefully that will change. I've been doing chiropractic most of my life. It tends to actually just went in on Monday because my hips were displaced a little bit and couldn't walk much, so they popped me back in, and life's been good so far. So I've really been fortunate that way, but I believe in it. I really think different cultures. As far as traveling goes, again, I started my first time just before my 15th birthday. Since then, I've been to 48 states. I really think it's been 49, but I know that I haven't been to Alaska yet, and maybe one snuck through me, but pretty much I've been all over the U.S., every one in the continental U.S., and I've shot down the Continental Divide, because I think what happens is I tend to kind of push the limits and have these different life experiences. I've been really blessed, really fortunate to do it. So I went whitewater rafting down the Continental Divide. I hiked down the Grand Canyon and did that. Just about 3-4 years ago, I went over to Las Vegas and they had NASCAR. It was 220 miles an hour on the straightaways and 180 miles on the turn. I mean, talk about intense and putting the pressure. Again, the mental commitment that you have to have, driving that fast, staying in a car all by yourself is pretty amazing thrill. Just recently, actually this past June, I just hiked Machu Picchu, and it was a kind of an odd story, but a friend and I, a couple of weeks beforehand, decided, all right, we're going to go hike Machu Picchu. I was not in any sort of training. We were actually getting ready for our season at the hotels. Our busy season is from May until September. We're in the Hamptons, and that's where all the people come to vacation. So I'm basically getting prepared for that. And then the Sunday of Memorial Weekend, I got to fly out. Well, my plane gets delayed, and you're supposed to have time, because the altitude is so high, to actually get your body used to it. I actually fly in about 4 hours before I'm leaving on my trip to go and hike. And my equilibrium's off, obviously, not that. But the best thing is they actually lost all of my luggage. And I'm not sure if you've seen the Peruvians, but they are really little people. And so what I had to do is I had to hunt down and actually find the biggest clothes that I could possibly find late in the day of the Peruvian people. Now, what I had to do is I had to cut the arms and cut the neck off of all of my shirts just to have them fit. I was fortunately enough to find a sweater that actually fit me like a glove, which was really nice. I had the pair of jeans and the tennis shoes that I had, and that's actually what I hiked the 5 days in Machu Picchu in. I'm not complaining, because those guys are out there in sandals, barefooted, and they're just tiny little guys with these backpacks. I had a little bit of a backpack with me, but they were schlepping all my stuff. There was no way I was doing it. The first day or two, we were up to 14,000 feet. Not the first day, that was day 3. But, the altitude took a little while to get to it. But again, I was pretty focused, mentally strong, and knew exactly what I wanted to do. But I was just amazed at the people and what they did and their commitment to it, and how they prepared themselves and what they did. Again, these guys they live up. Most of them are farmers. In the way that they breathe, and the way that they're able to handle it, in any sort of problems that they have, how they can handle it with different roots and different vines and anything that basically is right around there in nature, that's what they use in order to get better. It's not like they can run out to the CVS and get, a ointment or anything else, whatever they have. And, so I really watch and admire those things. I spent a lot of time in China. I actually took my sons, and we went out there for 3 weeks, and we traveled all over. I actually competed in swimming while I was out there. I swam 4 different competitions while I was there. Believe it or not, my Chinese coach said I swim like a rock, still do. And so I was fortunate in order to do that. But while we were out there, we went all through the different villages and saw the different medicines and watched exactly how they did it and how their ailments and what they did and the sort of herbs that they had and everything else. So it's really amazing to me, in every different culture that you go to, you see different philosophies in the way they do it. Now, I've been really fortunate. I've been all over the continental United States, been to over 48 states, and I've been to over 30 countries. Recently, about a year and a half ago, I was in Africa. I started out in Johannesburg, did a lot of amazing things out there, and then I went out to the bush. Now, I was about, maybe about in 2.5-hour plane ride on one of these little junkets right out where we're landing on the grass, and there's nothing out there but a reserve. And we stood out there for 3 days, and we had armed guards with us, because obviously the wildlife, and we lived right out there in the middle of it. They had the running water that the well water that we'd have to go, and that's all we had. But we saw all the different animals, and the giraffes, and the different elephants and those sorts of things. It was just an amazing experience. We saw the big 5, and then I think they have an ugly 5 too. We saw all of them, so it was a pretty neat experience.